New year, 2024. Finally done all of my film classes so I can focus on making more content. So what, I saved all of my prerequisites from my last semester. I mean, I loved Oppenheimer. How hard can physics actually be?
The nebular cycle goes round and round, round and round, round and round. The nebular cycle goes round and round. That's how the solar system's made.
Longlegs is the new crime, supernatural, horror, thriller. Yeah, honestly, seeing all the trailers for this movie, I always thought that it looked very mysterious and vague, and that's what really drew me to this movie. But after seeing the film, I can honestly understand where all of those marketing people must have been coming from. This movie is extremely odd, methodically slow-paced, raises a whole bunch of questions about what you just saw, and is destined to get a lot of people talking about it and a lot of people extremely divisive about it. So yeah, I really liked it. But with that said, again, I can see where a lot of people would be coming from when they say they don't like this movie. And I'll get into those problems later on, but for now, let's focus on everything that I really love about this movie. Starting with the visuals, which are gorgeously haunting. There is never a bright sunny day in this movie. Everything is so dark and casts a whole bunch of warm shadows, or it is completely gothic with a whole bunch of black and gray tones. It creates this horror atmospheric fear that can only be described as eerie. And that eeriness extends far beyond just the visuals. I won't lie, at first I wasn't really on board with 90% of the performances in this movie. Apart from maybe Blair Underwood, no main character in this movie acts like a normal person. I mean, yes, with Nicolas Cage as the main villain of this movie, you don't really expect a normal performance out of this guy. And thank God he goes as over the top as he possibly can at some points. Because he rides this thin tightrope of intentionally creepy and unintentionally funny as masterfully as you can imagine Nicolas Cage riding that rope. But even down to the side characters and the main character played by Micah Monroe, a lot of people in this movie don't talk right. I wouldn't necessarily call it robotic, but they always seem detached from what's emotionally the norm. And the more this movie reveals about the main character and the world that this movie sets up, the more I understand why that is. I won't say why that is because thank God the trailers don't reveal anything about it, but what I will say is everything that is revealed through the writing is revealed so naturally and so subtly that it's honestly a breath of fresh air. With the exception of the last third of this movie, there is never a gigantic exposition dump. Everyone hints at their past in a very natural way, and even just the set design tells you so much about the characters in this movie. It's so subtle and it's so realistic, but at the same time, the way that everyone acts in this movie is so robotic and aloof. It creates this odd paradoxical dynamic that I honestly found so interesting. But hands down, my favorite part of this movie are the scares. In terms of how jump scares are represented in films nowadays, it seems to be divided between two different people. There are the people who legitimately love jump scares and get startled every time they're in a film, and then there are the people who hate jump scares and think they're a cheap way of getting a quick reaction out of your audience. And truth be told, I'm usually in that latter camp. Jump scares for me are always something that you can always see coming, and 9 times out of 10 are usually leading to a fake out scare. About 75% of the scares in this movie are jump scares, but this is how you do jump scares masterfully. Whereas most jump scares in movie involve the sound draining out from a scene leading to a surprise, in this movie, most of the movie is silent. There is music in the movie, but I would say that 50% of the music isn't noticeable in a scene. There are entire sequences in this film where there's either no music at all or subtle hints of music, where there will only be like 2 2 or 3 shots in a scene, and the entire time you're just waiting for something to happen. Something to be in the background, or something to be right in the foreground to scare you. It always creates this uneasy sense watching this movie where maybe on paper, reading the script, you wouldn't necessarily think something is scary, but when you watch this movie with such meticulous sound design and shot composition, you're always on the edge of your seat waiting for something scary to happen. And even when something in your face scary doesn't always happen in a scene, it always keeps your attention. That said, I can see how this creates a double-edged sword for a lot of audiences. Whereas someone like me would love the meticulous silence and sound design, I could see how a lot of audiences wouldn't get into it because they would think that a scene is just going on for too long and it's just too boring, because there are rarely any big moments where the music's allowed to stand in the forefront, and rarely any moments where the characters are fully allowed to act with their emotions fully on their sleeve. If someone watched this movie and hated it, I would 100% understand. There is a major disconnect that this movie wants to create and does create, and in a way that also creates its biggest problem. While there are a couple instances where the characters' backstories are told, and there are slight subtle moments where some of the characters are fully allowed to show the full range of their emotions, while the movie successfully creates this eerie sense of dread, it also manages to create this apathetic sense of disconnect. And along with a couple confusing moments and plot holes involving the story and a lot of its reveals that I didn't really buy at all, I wouldn't say this is a perfect movie, and I can see why people wouldn't like it. But personally, I found this film completely unnerving in every way they meant it. From the performances, to the cinematography, to the set design, to the sound design, to the writing. From frame 1, you're uneasy, and for 100 minutes, you're always on edge. I'm gonna give Longlegs an A-. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do mean that. I know I've been gone for so long, but I was not kidding in the opening. This semester kicked my ass. Seriously, I am doing everything I can to get caught up with movies this year. Even if you just look at my Letterboxd, you'll see so many movies from this year on my watch list that I haven't seen yet, because I've just been that busy with schoolworks and exams. But now all of that is over, I am back, and I'm going to be getting back on track with every single movie I've missed from the past half of the year, and all of the movies coming out during the last half of the year and beyond. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys are the best, and don't forget to click subscribe and click that bell icon down below to stay up to date on all things movie, all things TV, all things nerd.